Rocky Mountain Construction, or RMC, is well known amongst theme park enthusiasts for spectacular rides such as Arangwazi, Zadra, Steel Vengeance, and many, many more. But we don't have one here in the UK. So that got me thinking, which park do we think is going to be the first park in the UK to bring us a spectacular RMC? In this video, I'm going to look at a selection of parks up and down the country, trying to work out who might be the first to give us one of these rides. Some parks fit perfectly, some the demographics questionable, some may not have the budget, some have just put rides in. And I've also asked you guys in a poll, so I'll be sharing the results of that later on. Right, let's get some of the obvious parks out of the way first. The most obvious one, when many people think of theme parks in the UK, is Alton Towers. Now, Alton Towers has tons of rides, and you could argue lots of space, although they can't build on all of it, so maybe they don't have a huge amount of space. The park kind of got enthusiasts going last year because John Burton in a Q&A session said this.
So a lot of you have asked, when will we see an RMC design at a park? Can we cut the camera? We can't be talking about anything potentially on the horizon.
Now obviously that got everybody thinking that Project Horizon was going to be an RMC. And we still don't know what's happening with Project Horizon. Initially it was planned for next year. They haven't broken ground yet, so clearly that's been pushed back. The park is doing so much more. They've obviously just done Nemesis and Thunder Valley. They're working on Project Ocean, they're doing the Sparkle project, they've redone Hex, they're working on the Sky Ride. Like, the park is investing heavily, which makes me think Project Horizon has been pushed back quite some time. But we still don't know if that was going to be an RMC. And actually, John Wardley, in an interview with Sean Evans, made this comment that kind of implied it might be SW9.
Now imagine a lot of enthusiasts crossing their fingers going, please be an original IP, Project Horizon, please be an original IP.
Yes, and I think SW9 is going to prove that.
Is that a confirmation that Project Horizon is in fact SW9 there, John?
Could be.
I like the cheeky smile. I like the cheeky smile.
Having said that, we haven't heard the park refer to this as SW9 at any point at all. So I'm not entirely sure if those comments kind of tied together or if we're just kind of clutching at straws to try and put this together. But in any case, I genuinely don't think that Towers will be the first to give us an RMC. I think, obviously, when you think RMC, you traditionally think of kind of hybrid wood and steel, and Towers took a very, very long time to put in Wickerman. Like, they had no wooden coasters. In fact, I believe most of the management kind of thought wooden coasters were terrible, they're outdated, it should all be steel. Evidently, manufacturers like RMC are disproving that. But yeah, I don't think Towers is going to be the first. If we stick with Maryland but go a little bit further down south, you've got, obviously, Thorpe Park. Now, this park, on the face of it, sounds like a perfect candidate for an RMC. They brand themselves as, you know, the thrill capital of the UK, and an island like no other. However, at the time of recording, they're about to launch the UK's tallest coaster with Hyperia in 3 days, 4 days, probably tomorrow by the time I get this video out. So I don't think they're going to be investing anytime soon. Their previous coaster was 12 years ago. Now, obviously, that doesn't guarantee that it's going to be 12 years to the next investment, but there's, you know, they don't have that typical pace. So I think whilst an RMC would be perfect for them, and they definitely have the space, they've got the ability to, you know, reclaim land. I just don't think they're going to have the budget anytime soon, and I don't think another coaster, they're going to want Hyperia to stay in the limelight for some time. So I think you're talking at least 4 or 5 years before we see another major coaster in this park, and I'm hoping that we get an RMC before that. Fun fact for you, RMC actually does have a connection with Thorpe Park. Not the RMC you're thinking of. In fact, the owners of the ground used to be Ready Mixed Concrete. So another RMC. And I only know that because I'm doing a series right now on Thorpe Park history. So if you are interested in that, make sure you hit that subscribe button to be notified when it drops. Again, staying down kind of around the London area, you got a couple more parks down there. You have Chessington. Now Chessington, if you look on a map, it looks like Chessington is already kind of at capacity. I'm not quite sure some of the area around the top, I'm not sure if that is actually Chessington area, like land, or if that's kind of beyond their boundaries. Again though, if you look at parks like Blackpool, which we will get onto, you know, they are the masters of cramming rides into very small space, so nothing is impossible. But I do think, I mean, they just launched the World of Jumanji last year. I obviously put in a B&M wing coaster. I could see an RMC working in Chessington because they sort of straddle that kind of thrill family line, and there's definitely some RMC out there that would fit that demographic. But again, based on the history and how long it's been since their previous ride, in fact, if I look here, 20 years it was before Jumanji since their previous coaster. So yeah, unless something's radically changed, I don't think we're going to get another coaster out of Chessington anytime soon. Now, the last Maryland park, and this one's probably the least likely on this list, again sticking in that neck of the woods, is Legoland Windsor. Now, they've obviously, like a few of the parks on this list, they've just opened a new ride, right? They just opened Minifigure Speedway. I think even the tamest RMC ride is too intense for this park. I genuinely don't think the demographic that goes there would appreciate an RMC. Maybe a Wild Moose, maybe. But yeah, I just don't think this is the target audience, so I'd be very, very surprised if Legoland was the first to bring us an RMC. Now, on the flip side of that though, Legoland has definitely used multiple manufacturers in the past. They don't kind of pick a manufacturer and stick with it. Sometimes you'll get a park who does a deal with a manufacturer for the next X number of years. I mean, you look at Alton Towers, a lot of their stuff's B&M, and other parks are similar, but when you look at Legoland, I mean, they have used Mack Rides, they've used Zamperla, they've used Huss, they've used Vekoma, and they've used tons of other manufacturers, so there's nothing stopping them bringing a new manufacturer in. Again, as I said, maybe a Wild Moose, but probably too much for this park. Not the right demographic. Now, leaving Maryland behind and moving quite a bit up north for most of you, south for me, because everything's south for me, Flamingoland. Now, I was there just a couple of weeks ago for a social event. Interesting park. It's definitely got a load of space. It already has, I think, 10 coasters. Wild variety of coasters. Their last investment 2 years ago was Sick, 10 looping coaster. I think Flamingoland is often forgotten about in terms of, for most people, it's too far away, right? It's too far up north for a lot of people, so I don't think it gets a huge amount of attention. There's part of me that thinks them investing in Sick was a way to try and get them back on the stage and say, hey look, we're up here, we've got some rides too, come see us. And I don't think that's massively worked. An RMC might be different. I mean, Sick is technically the same as Colossus, although nowhere near as painful. So if they did put in an RMC, it would definitely be a draw at the park. It would, get a lot of people up there. But again, I just don't see, they're working on the Lost River ride right now. They've got such an eclectic selection of rides. I mean, you've got Sick, which is a pretty decent coaster. You've got Mumbo Jumbo, which is bizarre. Kamali, which you could argue is a smooth SLC, if such a thing exists, with probably the world's slowest lift hill. Hero, which is just a death trap, and I have no idea why it still exists. So, again, they have a selection. An RMC would just add to the mix. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they've got the desire or the budget to invest in a large coaster of that scale. But I do think it would be really good for the park. I think, as I say, for a lot of people, Flamingoland is just forgotten about. And if they had an RMC, there'd be a lot of enthusiasts heading over there. Another park that I've not managed to get to this year, but certainly I'm just waiting on something to open before I kind of book a trip, is Drayton Manor. Now, this is a park that has been invested heavily over the last few years. They just opened the Wave, which was, the reimagining, if you want to call it that, of Shockwave. From what everybody has said, just changing the trains from stand-up to sit-down has been a massive improvement. They're obviously kind of getting close to opening their Intamin coaster, which is what I'm waiting on. And over the last few years, they did the Viking area, they've done a few other things. It's a park that's heavily investing, so you could argue that they'll want something for next year or 2026. Again, I don't know if an RMC would fit. Shockwave was quite an extreme coaster. As the Wave, a lot of people have said one of those inversions is probably the most intense they've done, and it's fantastic. So you could argue that even though they're kind of like a family park and they've taken out some of their thrill attractions, there is still an argument for it. And obviously RMC do have some less extreme coasters. Whilst I've seen them investing so heavily, I'm not sure that they have RMC on their radar, but you never know. So that leaves me with two parks to discuss, and One of these is a massive curveball that I didn't think would be on this list, but a recent event has made everybody believe that they will be the first. We'll get to them in a little second, but the first park I want to cover is Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Now, this is a park that, as I mentioned earlier, they are renowned for, you know, cramming rides into spaces. You know, if anybody can fit a new coaster in, it's going to be them. Many people for years have said they should RMC the Grand National, Dipper, you know, one of their wooden coasters. Personally, I don't think that is viable. Like, don't get me wrong, the National, to me, it's rough and it's probably past its sell-by date. I know there are loads of people who absolutely love that ride, and you're probably going to come at me in the comments. But for me, that ride just isn't special anymore. It is, I believe, grade A listed though, so they're limited to what they can do to it. Even if they were to try and convert this to an RMC, as I said already, the problem with Blackpool, or the strength of Blackpool, is how tightly packed everything is. I think to make one of their woodies an RMC, they would need a lot of space for extra footers and stuff, and I don't know if they'd manage to do that. So in terms of the existing coasters, converting them to an RMC, probably not going to happen. However, the park has obviously announced that they are stripping out Grand Prix. In fact, its farewell is in 3 weeks time. And clearly they're planning a new attraction. They've not said anything. I am curious if they're going to announce anything at that event. It would be kind of a nice tie-in to sort of say farewell to that ride, and then also kind of do a little, and here's what we're replacing it with. If you look at the area where Grand Prix is, it's actually quite a sizable area. Now, when I was there recently doing a crazy challenge, which I'll put up here if you haven't seen it, I did go on all the daft rides, including Eddie Stobart, which kind of goes in amongst that area. So, you know, if they did replace Grand Prix with a new coaster, are they going to strip out even more rides? Or, again, as I've said, are they just going to kind of weave it around whatever is there? I do think Blackpool is probably a good candidate, and I am super keen to hear what this new attraction is. They've said they want to elevate, you know, the guest experience to new heights, which some people have interpreted as they're going to try and take back that, you know, height from Thorpe Park. Maybe. I don't think that's high up on their agenda. The problem with Blackpool is that they're right on the seafront, and wind is a massive problem for them, and, you know, the big ones regularly shut because of wind. So I don't think height is where they're going to go, but I do think they'll want something to put them back on that kind of UK stage now that they've had the crown taken off. So I genuinely think Blackpool is a possible contender, and as I said, it's one of the two parks that you guys said as well. So that just leaves one more park, and as I said, in the poll that I put up, you guys predicted this one actually as the most likely. And I think the reason for that, it's Paultons Park, by the way, I'll probably put a graphic up and told you that. The reason for that, because let's be fair, Paultons Park is Peppa Pig World, and Peppa Pig is as far removed from RMC as you possibly could get. However, when they announced that next year they're doing something Manor, Haunted Manor, Mystic Manor, they're doing a ghost house thing. They also teased that in 2026 they're doing something Viking related. Now, they haven't said if it's an area, they haven't said if it's an attraction. Certainly a lot of people believe this is a full-blown area, not just one single ride. But the reason people seem to be latching onto this as a candidate for RMC is because the animation that they showed was a wooden frame spinning round, a metal logo, and in fact, they turned it upside down, implying an inversion. I think there's a good chance that Paultons Park could be one of the first to bring us an RMC. The one catch with that is one of their I think it's the head of their marketing, is renowned for winding up enthusiasts. A little bit like earlier when John Burton said, you know, something's on the horizon and drunk out of an RMC cup. I genuinely think that was just winding us up and not really. This park has previously had some planning permission for, I think it was a water coaster, and they humorously put the RMC logo over the image. So it's possible that they are just winding us all up, but definitely right now, amongst kind of all the enthusiasts, this is the park that everyone is expecting to bring us an RMC in 2026. So it'd be really interesting to see if they do, and indeed if Blackpool do. You never know, we might get both. It's not impossible. So I'd love to know down below what your thoughts are. Do you agree with the poll? Is that the two parks you think? Do you think there's another park that I've not put on this list that is the most likely? Or do you think that we're just not going to have an RMC in this country for many, many, many years to go? If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Hit subscribe, because I am trying to desperately hit 10,000 subscribers by next year. I genuinely appreciate every single one of you. The fact that when I'm in a park and you guys come up and say hi just blows my mind. So everyone who's already supported me, thank you so much. I've been Chris, you've been watching Coaster Dad. See you in the next one.